When my dad lifted his champagne glass and proudly announced that my trust fund had finally gone to someone who deserved it, I swear I felt the entire restaurant go silent, even though everyone was still clapping. And the worst part? My sister didn't even look surprised. She looked prepared. Before I tell you how one tiny number destroyed the perfect anniversary dinner they staged to humiliate me, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Because some betrayals don't just break your heart, they wake you up. Part 1. My name is Olivia Carter. I'm 27 years old. And up until 6 months ago, I truly believed my parents loved me the same way they loved my older sister Madison. That night was supposed to be simple. Their 35th wedding anniversary. A private room at some overpriced steakhouse downtown. Gold balloons. A slideshow of old family photos playing on a screen behind them. My mom wore this cream silk dress like she was the bride again. My dad kept squeezing her hand like they were still 25. And me? I wore a navy dress I couldn't really afford because I thought this was important. We were halfway through dessert when Dad tapped his glass with a fork. I just want to say, he started, smiling at everyone at the table, cousins, family, friends, even Madison's fiancé, that tonight isn't just about celebrating our marriage. It's about celebrating legacy. Legacy. I remember that word sticking in my throat. He turned to Madison. We're so proud of you. The way you've built your business. The way you've grown. I clapped. Of course I did. I've always clapped for Madison. Then he said it. And that's why your mother and I decided it was time to transfer the trust fund into hands that will actually multiply it. The table cheered. My stomach dropped. Trust fund. There were 2. One for each of us. Grandma set them up before she passed. She used to tell me, Livy, this is for your independence. Never let anyone control your future. I felt my face burning. I laughed a little, like maybe I misunderstood. But Madison reached over and squeezed my hand. Liv, don't make this weird, she whispered, smiling without looking at me. Don't make this weird? I leaned toward my dad. Wait, you mean her trust fund, right? He looked at me like I'd just embarrassed him. No, Olivia. We restructured things. Madison has plans. Real plans. You're still figuring things out. Figuring things out. Because I left corporate law to start a nonprofit. Because I didn't marry rich. Because I didn't ask them for money every time my rent was late. Mom jumped in quickly, her voice soft but sharp. Sweetheart, you've always been the creative one. Money just slips through your fingers. This is what's best for the family. For the family. So I sat there, nodding. Smiling, while my entire future was handed to my sister like a birthday gift. I barely tasted the cake. I barely heard the toasts. All I could think about was Grandma's voice in my head. Never let anyone control your future. When the bill came, Dad made a big show of paying it. Madison hugged them both, crying happy tears. I went to the bathroom and locked myself in a stall. I stared at my phone, hands shaking. I logged into the old trust account portal, the one Grandma's lawyer had shown me years ago. It shouldn't have been accessible anymore if they had restructured it. But it was. And that's when I saw the number. One number. Small. Almost invisible. But wrong. Very wrong. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt something cold settle inside me. Because that number told me this wasn't a family decision. It was a lie. And suddenly, the anniversary dinner wasn't about love. It was about covering something up. I walked back to the table, kissed my mother on the cheek, and told everyone I had an early meeting in the morning. Madison hugged me a little too tight. You'll be okay, she whispered. Oh, I would be okay. They just had no idea what I had just discovered. And they definitely didn't know what I was about to do next. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my couch with my laptop open, replaying that number over and over in my head. It wasn't the balance. It wasn't the transfer amount. It was the date. According to the portal, the trust had been liquidated 3 months ago. 3 months. Before this anniversary celebration. Before the speeches. Before the public announcement that made it sound like a thoughtful family decision. They hadn't just given it to Madison. They had already taken it. My chest felt tight. I pulled up the original trust documents Grandma's attorney emailed me years ago. I remember how serious he was when he explained it. This is locked until you're 30, Olivia. No one can access it without your signature. I was 27. I never signed anything. My hands started shaking so bad I had to put the laptop down. There are moments when betrayal hits you like a slap. And then there are moments when it sinks in slowly, like you're drowning and you didn't even realize you were in water. I called Madison the next morning. She answered on the second ring. Too fast. Hey, Liv. Her voice was soft. Careful. Why was the account liquidated in March? I asked. Silence. Then she exhaled. You weren't supposed to see that yet. My heart dropped into my stomach. See what yet? Dad handled it, she said quickly. It was just easier that way. Easier than what? Forging my name. She didn't deny it. Instead, she said something worse. You would have wasted it. I swear something inside me cracked. You don't get to decide that. It's not about you, she snapped. It's about the family business. We needed capital. Dad said you'd understand eventually. Understand? They stole from me. Smiled in my face. Toasted to legacy. And expected me to understand? I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. But the tears came then. Hard. Ugly. The kind that make your throat hurt. I thought about every time I defended them. Every time friends told me my parents treated Madison differently, and I brushed it off. You don't know them like I do. Turns out, I didn't know them at all. By noon, I drove to my parents' house. Mom opened the door, already tense. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly. Did Dad forge my signature? Her lips pressed into a thin line. It wasn't a forgery, she said. It was adjusted authority. Adjusted authority. That's when Dad stepped into the hallway. You're being dramatic, he said. It was sitting there doing nothing. Your sister is expanding. This benefits everyone. Everyone. My voice shook. Or just Madison? He didn't blink. She's proven herself. And I haven't. All the late nights building my nonprofit from scratch. The grants I won without their help. The rent I paid alone. The pride I swallowed every time they compared me to her. None of it counted. Dad's voice turned cold. If you make this legal, Olivia, you'll tear this family apart. There it was. The threat. Not an apology. Not regret. A warning. I laughed, but it sounded broken. You already tore it apart. Mom reached for my arm. Sweetheart, please. Don't do something you'll regret. Regret? I regretted trusting them. I regretted believing Grandma's money was safe. I regretted thinking love meant fairness. I walked out without another word. In the car, I sat there staring at the steering wheel. My reflection in the mirror looked different. Not softer. Not confused. Clear. They thought I wouldn't fight back because I was the creative one. The emotional one. The daughter who avoids conflict. They forgot something. I went to law school. I might not practice corporate law anymore. But I understand contracts. Signatures. Fiduciary duty. And fraud. That tiny number, the liquidation date, was proof. Proof that they acted before any announcement. Proof that my signature was processed electronically on a day I was out of state at a conference. Proof that someone accessed an account they legally couldn't touch. I wiped my face. Took a deep breath. If they wanted to talk about legacy, fine. Grandma built that trust to protect me. And I was done protecting them. That afternoon, I called the one person they didn't expect me to call. Grandma's attorney. He still remembered me. When I explained what happened, his voice changed. Calm. Focused. Olivia, he said slowly, if what you're telling me is accurate, this isn't just unethical. It's criminal. Criminal. The word echoed in my chest. For the first time since the dinner, I didn't feel small. I felt angry. Not explosive angry. Cold angry. The kind that plans. The kind that waits. The kind that doesn't raise its voice because it doesn't have to. My father thought the biggest threat to his legacy was competition. He never imagined it would be his own daughter. And I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to expose one number and let it speak for itself. 3 weeks later, my parents hosted another dinner. Not as fancy. Not as public. Just immediate family and a few investors Madison was trying to impress. Apparently, she was announcing the official expansion of her company, the one partially funded by my restructured trust. They didn't invite me. I showed up anyway. I wore a simple black dress. Minimal makeup. Hair pulled back. Calm. Controlled. When I walked into that private room, the air shifted. Conversations paused. Forks hovered midair. Madison looked like she'd seen a ghost. Dad stood up slowly. Olivia, this isn't the time. Oh, I know, I said gently. That's kind of the point. Mom's eyes darted toward the investors. Can we talk outside? No, I replied, keeping my voice steady. I think we should talk right here. Since we all care so much about legacy. You could feel the tension spreading across the table like spilled wine. Madison tried to recover first. She forced a laugh. Liv, don't do this. Do what? I asked. Ask about the liquidation date? Or the electronic signature that was processed while I was in Chicago. Dad's face changed. Not confused. Not defensive. Cornered. One of the investors shifted uncomfortably. Is there a problem? I stepped forward and placed a folder on the table. I just thought everyone investing in this expansion should know where part of the capital actually came from. Silence. Madison's fiancé stood up. Okay, this is inappropriate. Inappropriate. I repeated. Forgery is inappropriate. Fraud is inappropriate. Stealing from your daughter is inappropriate. Mom's voice cracked. Lower your voice. I didn't sign anything. And according to the original trust agreement, neither of you had authority to liquidate it without my consent. Dad's jaw tightened. We had power of attorney. No, I said softly. You didn't. I opened the folder and slid copies across the table. The trust agreement. The portal records. The timestamp of the transaction. The conference badge proving I was in another state the day my signature was processed. And then I said the one thing I knew would land hardest. I've already filed a formal complaint. And a civil claim. You could actually hear Madison inhale. Dad's voice dropped to a whisper. You wouldn't. I did. The investors started gathering their things. One of them looked at Madison like she was radioactive. This wasn't disclosed, he muttered. Madison turned to me, eyes glossy. You're ruining everything. I finally let myself feel it. The anger, the hurt, the years of being second, being dismissed, being told I was too emotional, too creative, too soft. No, I said. You did. When you decided I was disposable. Dad stood abruptly. If you go through with this, don't expect to ever come back here. There it was again. The control. The threat. And for the first time in my life, it didn't scare me. I'm not trying to come back, I said quietly. The lawsuit moved faster than I expected. Because once the attorney reviewed everything, it wasn't just a family misunderstanding. It was clear misuse of fiduciary authority. Unauthorized access. Fabricated consent. Their lawyer tried to settle quietly at first. Offered partial repayment. Then full repayment. I refused. This wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the truth being on record. About the word forgery existing in black and white where they couldn't spin it into adjusted authority. When the case finally reached mediation, my parents looked smaller somehow. Not physically, just stripped of the illusion. Dad wouldn't look at me. Mom cried the entire time. Madison sat stiff, her company already bleeding. Investors after word spread that her startup was funded through disputed family assets. The final agreement required full restitution of my trust fund, plus penalties. A public correction filed with the investors clarifying the source of funds. And Dad stepping down from any financial authority over family-managed assets. He signed it with shaking hands. I watched him. Not with hatred. With clarity. This wasn't revenge in the screaming dramatic sense. It was exposure. One number. One date. One detail they assumed I wouldn't question. And that tiny crack shattered the entire performance. A month later, the money was back where Grandma intended it to be. Locked. Protected. Untouchable without my consent. I visited her grave the day everything finalized. I sat there with the court documents folded in my lap. They tried to use your gift to control me, I whispered. But I remembered what you said. Never let anyone control your future. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I felt free. Not because I won, but because I finally saw them clearly. Parents are supposed to protect you. Mine protected an image. A favorite child. A narrative where I was the unstable one and Madison was the golden investment. But here's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you space. Space to observe. Space to prepare. Space to strike precisely. Madison's company survived. Barely. But not with the same shine. Investors don't like legal stains. Dad's reputation in his professional circle took a hit he couldn't smooth over with charm. And Mom stopped calling altogether. The silence used to terrify me. Now it feels peaceful. Sometimes people ask if I regret it. If I wish I'd handled it privately. I tell them the truth. They handled it privately. For 3 months. I just brought it into the light. And if exposing the truth destroys something, maybe it wasn't built on anything real to begin with. That anniversary dinner was supposed to humiliate me. To remind me I wasn't the chosen one. Instead, it reminded me of who I actually am. Not the emotional daughter. Not the creative screw-up. Not the sister who would have wasted it. I'm the woman who reads the fine print. The woman who doesn't panic when cornered. The woman who understands that justice doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. All it takes is one number. And the courage to say, that's wrong. If this story moved you, if you've ever been underestimated or made to feel small by the very people who were supposed to protect you, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Because sometimes the quietest daughters become the strongest women, and the truth always finds its way to the table.